back. In today's story, we're gonna do another spec bio type animal story, and it starts off in a pretty log home overlooking a waterfall. Lilac had always been very busy with her job. She knew that she had to take a break, and so she decided to get away. All of the stress of her work, trying to figure out what she ultimately wanted to do with the rest of her life instead of living from hand to mouth. Her mom and dad had also recently divorced. Her mom was acting like a crazy 16-year-old hooking up with random people on Tinder, and her mom's recent date took her across the country on vacation, and since Lilac has seen her mom become this new person, a part of her was a bit envious, and she was like, you know what, my mom is throwing caution to the wind. Lilac was usually very by the books type of girl, so she decided, you know what, I'm not gonna go that crazy, but maybe I do need to get away from the city, get away from civilization for a while. And so she just figured she needed some alone time. So she went away to a log home that was handed down by the family, and it was so beautiful because it overlooked this waterfall, and it was this kind of small waterfall that ran off from a stream, and then a few yards yonder through the trees, it would be this drop off to a much bigger waterfall. It wasn't the largest waterfall, but it was quite a drop that if you were to leap from it, you would be fine. You wouldn't hurt yourself falling into the pool, but you could also hit your head on one of the rocks below and hurt yourself. So you would have to know exactly where the rocks were in that waterfall. It's like one of those situations where you have to grow up there. Lilac got to the log home and she settled down with her chameleon. It was a pretty chameleon creature that had a little bird beak, and instead of a long sticky tongue, it would use a long sticky appendage at the top of its head that could protract and grab whatever it needed and basically hold it there and strangle it till it died before ultimately putting it in its mouth. She had nicknamed the chameleon Million because it was a 1 in a million chance that she would find a creature like this, a creature that cost so much money an ordinary person like her would never be able to buy him, but someone had abandoned him or he had gotten away somehow, and she found him and basically took him in and took care of him, and she bonded with him. Lilac took several nights to get herself together. She was writing and she was like, you know what, this is perfect. I can hear the ambience of the woods and the chirping insects and birds and leaves and the water, and this is just, wow. She would just sit out on the porch and just take it all in, and it was beautiful, especially in the daytime. You could see everything, and it's like she was a coved in little area. There were trees that were so high that nobody could see over them, and they were so thick that she couldn't see anything through them. She was just in this little tiny area. As a matter of fact, the driveway kind of had a winding effect. It took 2 minutes to drive that driveway. It was just beautiful. Lilac was happy, and as an introvert, it was a perfect place for her. Before the evening came, her boyfriend had come out to see her. Even though she was kind of tucked away from society, she was only about 15 to 20 minutes from town, which was the beautiful thing about all of this. So her boyfriend Dallas came over, and he was wearing his big old jacket, and he had a little bag with him, and he was like, look, I just came from the gym. You want me to stay with you for a few nights since, you know, you're here? And she's like, yeah, why not? I mean, I always have roommates. This is actually the time that I'm alone. I know that's why you came here. And he's like, yeah, of course, duh. Open up the door, let me in. And he cooked for her and basically massaged her, and they made love. It was just so magical. It was so different than how she even had this relationship outside. She and Dallas didn't feel serious outside. It just felt like he was someone who came over once in a while, but for some reason, him being here made him feel like an actual boyfriend, like an official relationship, even though Lilac thought that she didn't know what one of those were. So for a few days, she and Dallas would just hang out together, and it feels almost like they were married, but she would never say that. It could probably scare him away. In the back of her mind, she thought that Dallas probably had other girlfriends somewhere, and he just never said anything because there were a lot of other people that wanted to be with Dallas, and, you know, she was just whatever, just don't fall in love with him. That was her only thing. Well, the day came and Dallas had to leave, and honestly, Lilac was sorry to see him go, but part of her wanted that quiet again. And so she settled down in the cabin once again on the porch, and she was like, you know what, this is fine. And she had Million in her lap while she was also on her phone writing the next script or outline for another part of her story. And she did not realize that the time completely went away from her, and it got really dark. And sitting out there on the porch in the dark, overlooking the tree line, it was very creepy. Like, there was something serene about it, but there was something very vulnerable about it as well. Like, Lilac felt as though she was just sitting there looking into these scary trees. It was just very, very creepy. So Lilac is like, no, let me take my butt up and just go back inside. I just don't feel right now. And Lilac was fine. She settled down, she went to bed, she put Million to bed, and suddenly she felt very lonely. There was a part of her that wished that Dallas was still there, but he was gone, and she went to sleep. She woke up when she heard a noise outside, and she's thinking to herself, I hope it's an animal. Like, that part of her is just thinking, I hope it's some wild animal and it's just grazing or looking through the garbage can, because the dream that she just had was just very odd. So she closed back her eyes because she's one of those people that she's watched enough movies. She is not going to get up and investigate what it is, because if she just ignores it, it will just go away. And what really creeped her out is when the noise coming from the outside of the living room area of the log home suddenly ended up at her window in her bedroom. There was that noise like the leaves or ground crunching underneath the very heavy feet of something. And as she listened with her large ears, she recognized something horrific. This thing, whatever it was standing on two legs. And usually something that is standing on two legs, if it's not a bird, is something that walks on two legs. So something that is like her or other of her fur kind. It is not something that is feral. So she got a bit creeped out and she said, no, I'm not going to look. I'm not going to look. And what scared the mess out of her was when Million, who was in his little tank, started chirping very loudly. And usually he chirps like that if he's distressed or freaking out or very nervous about something. She's not heard him make that sound in a long while. She used to pick him up and try to clean his cage, and because he wasn't used to her, he would make that noise. But after getting used to her for a while, he stopped making it altogether and would make little cooing noises or make no noise at all. The fact that he was making this distressing call was what really worried her. So she was like, okay, and now it feels like it is right by the window, and there's this very, very soft tapping noise at the glass. Almost indiscernible, but it feels like a yell to Lilac. And she quickly gets up and looks out the window, and it's nothing. And she's like, I'm not going insane. I know I'm totally awake. My animal just reacted to something. I don't know what it is. And for the next 2 nights, it would feel like that. And she's like, you know what? I'm leaving in 2 nights, but this is kind of stressful. I think I'm gonna leave a night earlier, because you know what? This is okay. This is okay by me. But then she changed her mind because she figured, like, if I don't get over whatever this paranoia is, I'll never be able to be quiet. This is my land. This is my family's land. I'm not gonna make some creep or whatever it is chase me away. So she did what anybody probably would do. She set up her phone, and the phone that she had allowed her, as long as it was charged, to record for about 24 hours. And funny enough, it's like, okay, her phone could charge while it was taking videos, so she set up her phone, and she's like, okay, I'm just gonna go to sleep and, you know, whatever. She didn't want to plug her ears just in case it was someone who wanted to break in, knowing that she was alone, and she figured the only person who knew I was alone is Dallas, and Dallas would never put me in danger. So she went to sleep, and she heard a really loud noise, and she woke up suddenly. She thought it was Million, her pet, but it wasn't. She eased her head up off the bed. The window is right next to the bed. So she has one of these bedroom setups where the bed is here and there is a window right there in the middle of the wall. She gets up and again, she sees nothing, but then she sees a bush move in her periphery, but whatever it is, it's gone. She's like, whatever it is not eating the garbage. And she saw some little claw marks on the glass, which is very peculiar because she's like, what kind of animal can scratch glass like that? But she's like, whatever. She checked her phone. She's like, I got you on video, sucker. And when she checked the footage, it seemed as though it caught nothing. But near to when she was, like, the last hour before she woke up, that's when she saw something. And what she saw completely terrified the mess out of her. She wanted to pack her stuff and leave right there and then, but she was so terrified because she thought that thing would still be out there. Plus, it wasn't fully morning yet. What had been positioning itself outside the log home for these past few nights was this creature, a Wendigo. Something about it just didn't look right. Its body was too mangly, there were shadowy parts in its body that would move and shift as it moved. There were certain times in the footage where there was a noise like she was shifting in the bed, the phone would pick that up, and the creature would turn sideways, or in the middle of while it was moving, it would just freeze, and the texture on its body would turn into this bark-like structure. She had also had lights set up outside so that she could see whatever it was, and it was freaking creepy. Its face would just become amorphous. Its body, for the most part, would be amorphous. So if you didn't know what you were looking at, you would think it was a tree. Lilac was absolutely terrified, and it was still dark, and she ran to the bathroom with Million, and the both of them stayed in there till morning. In the morning, when Lilac woke up, she was like, you know what? I don't feel comfortable being in here anymore. So she called her boyfriend over, or her unofficial boyfriend. And Dallas was like, are you sure? And she's like, yes, I saw this strange ass creature. I have video proof. I sent you a capture. No, that's not Photoshop. Please get here. So Dallas is like, all right, let me bring my brother. So of course, as soon as possible, the brother and Dallas went over to go and see what was going on. Lilac was so happy that Dallas was there. He was like, all right, you gonna show us what you saw? His brother came in after and was like, okay, so I hear that you heard that you saw a Wendigo. I gotta see this. Dallas sat down on the bed with Lilac as she showed him what she saw. When Dallas and his brother saw the picture and then the videos, the both of them were freaking out. The first thing Dallas said was like, what are you doing? Pack your stuff, let's go. And they drove away from the property. Lilac would later call her mom and tell her what she saw. And when she had talked to her mom on FaceTime, they were FaceTime each other, her mom would just lackadaisically say, oh yeah, honey, that's right. I forgot to tell you, yeah, we do have a Wendigo on the property, a few of them as a matter of fact, but don't worry, they don't bother you if you don't bother them, and if you don't go too far out in the woods where the obvious property tree line stops. So Lilac was like, Mom, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, do you notice how past a certain point it looks like all the trees are kind of dead? They're in between living and dead. Yeah, where the trees start decaying, you don't go into that part of the forest. Just the driveway and you're fine. This freaked Lilac out, and she was like, you know what? Don't even bother leaving that home to me. That is a place I will never be going back. So Lilac did go back to the city with her pet, Camavian, and she and Dallas would become really good friends, but he found another girlfriend and decided he wanted to be with that girlfriend. But she would hook up with his brother, Gregory, who, funny enough, Dallas was completely fine with. As a matter of fact, he was the one that suggested that the both of them get together. Gregory and Lilac would get married and they would have a life in the city. When her mom was older, she moved back into that log home. And Lilac figured enough years had gone by. She remembered that creepy incident and she didn't really want to think about it, but she wanted to visit her mom. And so she and Gregory went to go visit her mom at that log cabin. By this time, both Lilac and Gregory were a little bit older. Lilac also had something to tell her mom. She was pregnant and she wanted to celebrate that, but they wanted to keep it a surprise until they went over to the log cabin. Her mom, a bit grayer, would greet her, and she knew there was a special occasion because she thought that her daughter never wanted to visit. She thought that her daughter never wanted to visit this log home again, but she had fun there. They all hung out. Gregory and Lilac took Lilac's mom out and they had dinner and they just had a really good time. Lilac's mom was just really fun to be around. And Gregory was thinking to himself, man, if this is what Lilac's gonna be like when she's older, I'm definitely down. But the two obviously had different personalities. The mom was way more extroverted and way more of a hippie, while Lilac was more introverted and a little bit reserved. That night, they played some games, like family games like Monopoly, and then Gregory and Lilac would go to sleep. Once again, Camavian was placed in his little tank by the window, or at least a distance away from it. Lilac would tell Gregory, man, it's like having a lot of odd flashbacks here about the Wendigo. And Gregory kept thinking to himself, you think it's still out there? She's like, I don't know, Mom says it doesn't bother anyone if it's true. I mean, what if we were all on some psychedelic shit? What if we were all just smelling stuff and we didn't realize it was affecting us and you're sleeping and drawing all that in? He's like, it's possible, but I'm not taking any chances. So as they went to sleep, everything was fine, and then they heard something. And when both of them got up, both of them heard it, and they crept out the window, they didn't see anything. So he told her, hey, let's both set up our camera. And so they did that. And just like in the past, the Camavian made that chirping noise again that woke both of them up. And when Lilac had looked through their footage to see what was outside, they both decided, you know what? To hell with this. I don't even know what possessed us to come back here. We are never coming back here. And they even went and showed Lilac's mom, and she would even be like, wow, that's new. What they were looking at on Lilac's phone, on both of their phones, were dozens of these figures just standing in the dark, completely still, in the shape of the creature that Lilac saw that night.